Hello, and welcome to In Depth with TommieMedia. I'm Emily Haugen. A 2020 Gallup poll found that only 40% of Americans have at least a fair amount of trust in the mass media. The Trusting News Project seeks to grow trust in news media by helping journalists demonstrate credibility to their viewers. To accomplish this, the organization works directly with newsrooms, training journalists in transparency and engagement strategies to help rebuild community trust. Emmy Award-winning journalist and working member of the project, Lynn Walsh, joins us today to talk about trusting news and media literacy. Lynn Walsh, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So, as I noted in the introduction, only 40% of Americans have at least a fair amount of trust in the mass media. What do you think has brought us to that point?
Well, the trend has happened over time. It's not something that just happened overnight. And when you look at data and you look at research, there are a couple things that people point to. The internet being one of them, but not the only thing. There also is the fact that content isn't regulated like it used to. The rise of talk radio and the rise of 24-hour cable news networks is also believed to have contributed to that, along with the internet and social media.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So you've been working with the Trusting News Project for the last few years. Why is a project like this that works to build trust between journalists and the public so important in today's world?
Yeah, so I've been working with the project for over 3 years now. And, for me as a journalist, it's really important that when we're working to produce content, that it's being trusted, it's being believed, and that people find it accurate. Because otherwise, really, what's the point? And for me, that's the point of this project. We want to make sure that the public has a good relationship with journalists and with news organizations so they can then believe the content, believe the information, believe the accurate reporting, so they then can impact their lives and make decisions in their lives based on the information that they are getting from the journalists who are working so hard to provide it.
Mm-hmm. So Gallup reports that only 1 in 10 people who identify as conservative have at least a fair amount of trust in mass media. One of the main things that Trusting News has focused on is talking with those individuals specifically. So what does the organization hope to do with that initiative?
Yeah, so when I first joined the project, our focus really is building trust with all communities. But when we saw the recent data that did come out from Gallup, and we saw that alarming number, basically you're talking about 1 in 10 people who identify as conservatives say that they have a great deal or a fair amount of trust in the media. So that's newspapers, that's television, that's the radio. And so when we saw that, we said, wow, this is something we want to learn more about, we want to dig deeper into. Because if you have almost half of your population potentially, and of that percentage, only 1 in 10 of those are going to trust in the news content that's being produced, we see that as very problematic. And where does that leave us when it comes to a shared set of facts, when it comes to facts in general and what people believe to be true? And so for us, we decided to focus on this in the beginning of 2020, and we are working with newsrooms, about 30 of them across the country, newspapers, television stations, radio stations, public media, small organizations, large organizations, and they are interviewing the people in their community who identify as conservatives. And the idea here is that these are in-depth, hour-long interviews, and we really hope to get insight from these individuals to find out what is leading to this distrust. And then based on that, is there anything that journalists can do to work to rebuild that trust, either in reporting, story selection, explanations, anything like that?
That's important work. So I know you've spent a lot of time speaking with different groups about media literacy. What does it mean to be media literate, and what is the value in it?
Yeah, so I feel like consuming news is harder than ever nowadays, and I can see as a news consumer how it might be frustrating to open up Facebook, to open up a browser, to open up even your email, because you're just so overwhelmed with information. And so that is why this whole focus on media literacy is so important right now. And also it takes work from both journalists and from the public. And so what it means to be media literate means that you have an understanding of how news works, of how information flows, right? Before, you used to just get a newspaper and it was there in front of you, or you used to turn on your television and you had the information in front of you. But now it's coming to you in so many different ways. So media literacy is understanding and knowing how to navigate it. And why that's important is because there is a lot of content out there that may look like news or may look like information or facts, but in reality, it's not. And so the idea is you have to be able to distinguish what is trustworthy, what is reliable information, what is accurate information from content that might be opinion, which again, opinion is fine to consume, but knowing that it's opinion while you're consuming it is so important. Also the content that might be made to look like news, we would call that misinformation or disinformation, right? You have to be able to discern the two, because otherwise you might consume content, think that it's fact, and it's not, and then that could influence the decisions you make that could harm others, it could harm your family, it could harm yourself.
Mm-hmm. So how can those who are concerned about media accuracy take an active role in verifying that the information that they hear is accurate?
Yeah, so the first thing that I recommend is always looking at the source. So where's the information coming from? Look at the URLs, look at the account that is sharing the information. So if it's on Facebook, if it's on Instagram, if it's on TikTok, who is this person? Who do they work for? What is this organization? Go to the About Us page, see what they are about. So you're gonna look at the source. The other thing is to really ask yourself, is this news and information, or is this meant to be opinion? Journalists are getting better about labeling content that is opinion. And remember, opinion content could mean a letter to the editor. It could mean a column. All of those things are words that journalists use to refer to opinion content. And so when you're looking at content, then ask yourself, is it opinion? Is it news? If it's opinion, again, totally fine to consume, but just know that some information may be left out. And it may contain accurate facts. A lot of opinion content does, but that doesn't mean you're getting the full story. Other things to consider and look at is if you see a lot of grammatical errors, you're going to see some once in a while, right? But if there's just a lot of miscapitalization, one word's in uppercase, the other's all lowercase, bold, missing commas, periods, all of that, that's kind of a red flag. I would look more closely at the About Us page. The other thing to keep in mind is if they're always attributing the information to someone else or another news organization, or they're not attributing at all, those would also be red flags. If you are ever unsure, stop before you share, stop before you kind of spread the information and kind of try to figure out, is this true, is it not? Go through some of those things I mentioned. If you're still not sure, don't share it. Don't kind of spread information that you aren't sure is accurate. And also, don't hesitate to reach out to your news organization, your local news organization, and ask them, hey, I saw this. I'm not sure if it's true or not. Could you help me determine if it is?
Okay, those are really helpful tips. Lynn Walsh, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
If there's a topic you would like covered on In Depth, tweet us at TommieMedia. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the latest TommieMedia videos. With Lynn Walsh, I'm Emily Haugen. We'll see you next time we go in depth on TommieMedia.